So, welcome back to part two of our Cutting the Cord blog series, where we are looking at creating adult parental relationships free from the rules, the expectations, the roles, the demands, and the abuse of obligation. This topic has been something that has been a significant journey for me. And even as I have begun it, I feel both the importance, the urgency, even behind this idea, this theme, topic. I also feel the stories, the old stories coming up about family loyalty and airing dirty laundry and the expectations of the eldest daughter and the threat even of looking for change. I'm willing to contend with those two realities holding together. The reality in which I feel both extremely confident and hopeful, and the lesser, yet still truthful reality that I am a little uncomfortable. I am a little afraid. I am a little bit triggered, which means I may stumble for my words a little more than I normally do on these videos, which in many ways I record these for myself as a way of keeping authentic, of keeping learning flowing. I know that was 3 ing words in a row. I'm not sure if that was grammatically correct, but it worked for me. In a very healthy way, these videos help me keep walking the journey. If there's a person out there that receives some benefit from it, then that is just an amazingly, extraordinarily humbling gift. But just as we're talking about, my recording of these videos in no way obligates you in any way to respond, engage, agree, disagree, whatever. It is primarily me trying to be faithful to the work that I have done and am continuing to do in my own life. And if my story can help someone else, then even better. So, what we're going to talk about today are family roles. I love the modality of what's called family systems theory, in which we look at a family, parental units, children, as a system in which individuals function as part of a bigger whole, the family. There might be a mother, a father, there will be children, and each of those individual people become components of a bigger system called the family. Within a system, there's always rules of engagement. What one of my professors likened to setting the thermostat. There are parameters for appropriate behavior, belief, emotional expression, communication, conflict management / resolution / avoidance. All of these rules create the parameters in which the family is allowed to function. In our homes, if we are able to have a thermostat that we can set and regulates and works, this provides usually a good thing. In a family system, however, it just provides what's called normal. Healthy, not as guaranteed. In a family, there are always expectations of each individual members to function in a certain way to keep the system going. Just like your HVAC system connected to that thermostat, there are people that heat things up. There are people that cool things down. There are people that keep the status quo. There are people that set the rules. There are people that enforce the rules. And there are people that help deal with the consequences of keeping those parameters. The people that clean up, the people that check the weather for incoming threats, the people that are asked to do the emotional or communicative or conflict management roles on behalf of everybody. The term that comes to mind often for these systems is that there's always someone who, in old practice, old history, is the sin eater. There's always someone for whom it is their job to clean up and take away and carry the debris of the other system members' emotional inabilities, to be the one that bears the responsibility for all of the emotions for the family, to fix it, to save people from themselves, to make it better. Those people tend to become counselors. Hi, nice to meet you. And doing what I do now is a very beautiful redemption of the role that I was trained to be. Who are you in your family? It's not bad to have an identity. It's fantastic to have an identity. But it's even better to have an identity that is based upon the gifts, the talents, and your choice to participate in being that person, where the demands, the obligation, and the expectations are not imposed and imposed forever from birth to you die. So some of the family roles are externally focused, meaning keeping our family looking good to the outside world. And there are roles that are for the internal requirements, keeping the family members from killing each other, keeping the family members from being in conflict as much as possible, to doing whatever it takes to turn the thermostat down when required, which is usually what it needs, is that we get too hot. It is rare, more rare, I would say, that people know what to do when it gets too cold, to turn the heat up when people get super frozen, super cut off emotionally and relationally. All of these roles have in their establishment often a desire to help. And as they are held onto and maintained over the course of a lifetime, stand in the way of us becoming our better self, to mature and grow. So some of the roles in families, and you can Google these, and I have no, by means, not memorize them because there's a lot of options, but there's a few that are really, really recognizable. So there's always a hero or a golden child. There's always the child in the family that makes the family look really good. They are the pride and joy of the family. On the opposite side, there's always a black sheep, a scapegoat, a reason why our family isn't perfect, and bears a lot of the brunt for why our family isn't perfect. There's often the lost child, especially if there's already somebody taking the hero role, the golden child role, and the black sheep slash scapegoat role, and there's another child or more than one, 3 or more, then a lost child is almost guaranteed. There's nowhere else to go. There's no more space for being seen in the family. The lost child is the one that is not the problem. They're the one that gets missed often because of the visibility of the hero and the aggravation of the black sheep. The other child just knows how to go along to get along. And then we have in the parent, and then when these are also functioning in the parents because this is how they were trained as children. Then you have the rescuer, the person for whom problem solving on behalf of others is their modus operandi. They do the emotional work, the soothing work, the peacemaking work on behalf of others, rarely able to self-reflect. We also have a rescuer type called a mediator that is able to do the work of the emotional conflict in the family and to act as a buffer to try to mediate, to help the family metabolize the drama. You take the mediator to another conclusion, you develop a savior complex. You develop an ability to shapeshift, to take on a persona or characteristics, or to be what the situation requires. A mediator, a rescuer towards a mediator, towards a savior complex are kind of different shades of the same role. And you can see how there are positives and negatives here. Another option is to go take that mediator role in another direction, which is to become the clown, to become the humor of the family, to distract from what's happening over here by what's hilarious over here. There's always a power broker in the family. That is who I call the thermostat settings person, the one who makes the rules of the system, the one who holds the power to change the rules of the system. I have yet to see it. I don't think that it's impossible, but I have never seen that be a child's role, because the parents are the ones that create the environment in which the child is raised. There can be a thinker, the one that tries to bring logic and reasoning to the situation. Sounds great. And yet this person is largely emotionally cut off. There are those that are the switchboard operators, the ones for whom the communication flows through them. You tell this person, and then that person does da, 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 da. Instead of allowing communication to happen between all members, they go to this one central person and rely on them to do their work for them, of keeping relationship going. And often there's a truth teller. There is someone for whom the reality of the system is more obvious. And they are the ones who reflect the shortcomings of the system and challenge it. This can be offensive to the other members of the system, especially when it is not handled kindly. If you bring truth with love, if you bring truth with kindness, with curiosity, with courage, we've got a much better fuel for the other members of the system to not become defensive, to not clam up, to not set their feet and not want to move. I can relate to kind of the extremes of this role, understanding in my younger self the desire to do something different and also not having all the tools and the language and the emotional maturity to do that in a way that was kind. I can own that responsibility. And I am grateful for the opportunities that I've had to keep walking the walk, to keep the journey of engaging my story moving forward so that the way that 20-year-old me engaged with my family system is a whole different ball of wax than how 47-year-old me does today. It's a process. As you look at who you are in your family of origin, meaning the family in which you grew up, what roles did you have? In smaller families, it's not uncommon for people to wear multiple hats. When you encounter emotions, what were the rules that you were taught? When you encounter communication issues, how were you taught to communicate? How do you feel about conflict? What story do you tell yourself about what conflict means? Most of the time, we have some version of the fact that conflict means bad. Just a little anecdote there. A relationship that is never challenged has no strength. A relationship that can engage, process, and work with conflict and come out on the other side still intact is a relationship that is stronger than when it began the process. An untested relationship is not really a relationship at all. So back to roles. Who did you play? If there was a movie that you can relate to, this is where we often can see it. If we look at characters in a movie and we watch them interact, we can often find ourselves there. Like, oh, and we might not even know what we're seeing or understand what it is that we're experiencing, but we're seeing our role in action. And it's both like, wow, I see me, I'm seeing, wow, and oh, that is painful. Oh, that's causes me grief. Oh, that hurts. An additional note is that these roles are further complicated by gender and birth order. There's an article I often see going around social media that's titled something like, if you're an eldest daughter, you're not okay. Which is funny, but it's a very truthful reflection of the expectations of the eldest child as a daughter versus a son, how they're different. The expectation of sons versus daughters to maintain their role, hello, daughters, to keep closest to the family, hello, daughters, to maintain the responsibility for caring for the parents as they demand as they get older, and that obligation to family, hello, daughters, versus largely sons who are given much more grace and space to, oh, boys will be boys. Oh, he's a boy. Ah, he's a guy. He doesn't get it. Oh, they're just not emotional. Blah, blah. All these stories that fly around about boys. The expectation of daughters versus sons is quite remarkable. And the way that those roles are lived out also remarkable. And I would be remiss if I did not touch on an even more difficult topic of the result of having emotionally immature parents on the child and the ways in which the child is used to fill in the gaps of the parent's emotional immaturity. Most of the time, this is between the opposite sex child and parent, so the mother and the son, or the father and the daughter. In other cases, it can be father to son and mother to daughter. And the child that fulfills that role can also shift over time, especially when said child no longer is willing to participate in that style of relating together. In some circles, this expectation to use the child to help the parent be a person. It's like the parent is a piece of Swiss cheese, and they use the child to kind of fill in the holes that they have as a result of their own parenting. And so a bond is formed in which there are great obligations on the child to be for that parent what they require in terms of their emotional, mental, financial, and yes, even physical support. This does not always result in physical abuse, but the emotional abuse of it is a very real thing called covert sexual abuse, in which the child is used by the parent to fill in the gaps of their own parenting. Yeah, take a deep breath. We look around and we see this is so different, even from when I was in school. We look around and we see anxiety as the number one experience of humanity on the planet right now. Fear and depression and the just lack of skill to engage the fullness of our humanity, where the brain is celebrated above all, which is a false picture of what it means to be human. When we are whole people. We have brains, yes, but we have bodies, we have emotions, we have spirits. That reduction to a certain set of behaviors and a certain logical way of being is elevated as the right way in many cases, which I believe is why we're seeing so much need now, so much anxiety and upheaval, and because we're reaping what we've sowed. Interestingly, when it comes to healing the whole person, our brain is our least helpful ally, because our brain is not interested in change. Our brain is only interested in keeping us safe, which means doing what we know how to do. So not only are we elevating the brain as the logical way as being better over being emotional, but we're also elevating the very thing that keeps us from growing into a better person, because we have eliminated 2/3 of what it means to be human. We are just brains on sticks. If this body is just designed to carry the brain around, then we have completely truncated the entire human experience. We have lopped off. If I'm just all about being logical and logical is right, then I have cut off 2/3 of who I am. What do you do with those 2/3 is what I want to know. And we look around the world, and that's what we do with them. When they're not engaged well, when they're not brought to the table, when mind, body, spirit are not working together, this is what we get. A world fueled by fear. And at the core of relationships in families is a desire to feel safe in response to the fear. Hence, I will obligate you to follow these certain rules that I think will make me feel safe, and therefore I will feel better and everything will be fine. This is not relationship. This is obligation. This is demand. This is you do my work for me. This is, I don't want to feel bad. You make me feel better. As if our identity, our emotional, mental, spiritual health is externally provided. No. External forces have an influence, absolutely, but from within, it must happen there first. So think about the ways in which you interact with your parents as an adult child. Are you still expected to be the clown, to entertain, to cajole, to help mom snap out of her mood, to bring her the treats that she likes? Are you the one who is the hero golden child that is still expected to always be perfect and can never make a mistake? And the weight of that demand of perfectionism is killing you from the inside out as you are literally decaying from the inside out because who you are out here doesn't match who you are in here. Are you lost in your family? Does your voice not really even matter? Do you wonder sometimes if I wasn't here, would they even notice? Are you the black sheep, scapegoat, troublemaker person? That can mean a whole bunch of things. We automatically think, oh, they're the drug addict, felon, worst case scenarios. But are you the one that just won't capitulate? You're going to bear some consequences for that. How dare you? And yet, there's a seed of that rebellion that is exactly what the system needs to be dismantled from the inside out. If you won't yield to obligation, there are consequences. There are consequences for telling the truth about your family system. There are consequences and risks for finally acknowledging in your head what your emotions and your body have been telling you for a long time. That clench in your gut, that pain in your shoulder, the tension in your back or your neck. They've all been communicating something to you that you're not okay. This is not okay. This doesn't feel right. And we're so used to ignoring all those signals. Let's stop. Let's let our body speak. Let's let our spirit speak. Let's let our emotions tell us the truth about what we're experiencing and ask our brain to just shut up for a minute and let other people get a word in edgewise. Who were you expected to be? Does that expectation continue into adulthood? And what would happen if you decided to choose something different? So we're going to engage some of these stories about the expectations, the rules, the mottos of family loyalty, of the family system, and just to see what will happen if we start to break down some of these myths about what it means to be in relationship. Join me next time, won't you? Only if you dare. Thanks for engaging with me on this really deep topic. I'll see you next time.